And we're live. Alex Powerlett, how are you, mate?
I'm really good. How are you?
Very, very well. Had a beautiful full day today and ready for a big chat with you. What have you been up to?
Wunderbar.
Wonderbar. What have you been up to?
What have I been up to? Just seeing how things are going to rumble now that we're, sort of stepping back into the field of action, and just seeing how teaching is going to go, both martial arts and meditation, as everything comes back online.
How quickly is that going to happen down there?
Well, I I went for a drive earlier to go train a student, and the Saturday traffic on Punt Road is back. So
Right.
it's like the traffic's definitely back online. And all restaurants are open, but with limited capacity.
Yeah. That's going to suck for restaurants, man. I don't know how they're going to be able to sustain being profitable with half capacity.
Absolutely. I don't know how that's going to work. Like coming from a hospitality background myself, like you see these, the guidelines and restrictions that are on at the moment, and they don't really work anyway. And then two, they're just going to destroy small business.
Exactly. Yeah. That's the actual tragic thing about this, is that the measures they put in place to try to prevent the disease from spreading is deadly to economy. So, which we also know is deadly to us, like mental health wise, and other things like that. The flow on impact, of preventing the virus might end up being worse than the virus itself, which is crazy.
Absolutely. And, every single thing that we've been told to do, unfortunately, has a negative impact on our immune system. It's like less sociability means a lowering of our body's microbiome, and which is basically the internal and external bacteria. So the bacteria of the gut and the bacteria that covers our skin and our mucous membranes. So everything inside our mouth and our nose, and our ears, our eyes, that actually suffers because we don't get a chance for it to mingle with other people's skin bacteria. So lack of diversity means that things start to dwindle, and it's nowhere near as good for us.
Yeah. So hopefully, I don't know, I don't want to say hopefully they get a vaccine, because I don't really want to be stuck with a vaccine, but I'm not sure. I think we should probably, keep protecting the elderly and the vulnerable. But maybe I don't see if this disease isn't as deadly as what they first predicted it was. It doesn't seem that it is that as bad as what they first originally thought it was going to be. It seems pretty crazy to keep the restrictions locked in like that. But that's why I'm not in that position to make that decision, and we're sitting here podcasting instead. So we'll let the people that are in that job take that role for the moment until we're elected, and then we'll do it.
That's right.
Firstly, I want to find out about you, and get into my general question is a little bit facetious, but how did you become spiritual, or when did you become spiritual?
For me, I think it happened at, I think there were stages of becoming spiritual. When I was very young, I was always looking for that thing that was magical, that thing that was mysterious. And I think I've been seeking and searching for that for a very, very long time. And that's what originally got me into martial arts, because I was like, well, this thing, it seems that not many people can do this thing really well, but the ones that can, there's something different about them. The people that, practice high level martial arts seem to have a different way of thinking and a different way of speaking than these other panicked people that I'm seeing.
Yeah.
And so that's I guess what first drew me into martial arts, and And, prior to that, I was always, when I was very young, I read The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings and all that sort of thing. I was like, oh, there's a spark of something in here, but I'm not quite sure what it is, but I really like it. So, I read a lot of science fiction and fantasy all throughout primary school and high school. During class, I would sit up the back and I'd be hiding my book in my pencil case and like reading that while, there was a maths lecture going on or something.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. So,
yeah, I really resonate with that too. That idea of looking for the magic. Like, where's the magic? Like you were kind of aware that there's something to unpack here, and like, how do we get into it? Like I was obsessed with trying to catch the mirror, like not working, like look back and try to see, you know what I mean? And that kind of mystery about trying to find where the mystery is, I resonate with
absolutely.
that.
Absolutely. And that drew me to, I guess, to nature and to the outside a lot as well, because I was like, hang on, there's all these stories from all these different cultures and countries, and they all basically point at the same thing. There's something unseen that we can't really find unless we really search very, very hard for it. And this unseen thing will help us be, stronger and smarter and more happy and less fearful and more able to actually live our lives in a way that that's exciting and playful and magical, coming back to that again.
Yeah.
And that, so I spent lots of time outside, lots of time training martial arts, lots of time, reading more and more and more and trying to figure out what was happening. And
so, was martial arts your introductory to, say, spirituality, would you say?
Absolutely. And again, like, it wasn't until later on that I even figured out that it was spiritual. I trained for years all throughout, high school. I tried all these different martial arts and I ended up I kept on coming back to Kung Fu, to Chinese martial arts. And then when I finished high school, I met like the most amazing teacher I've ever seen. Like this person could move so well that, like, it blew my mind. I was like, whoa, he's got the thing. He's got that mystery thing that I've been looking for. And like you'd step to within a few meters of him and you would feel calm because of just the way he was. And so I started training with him in my early 20s, and I've, those first sort of 3 years I trained with him full time. So, 5 to 6 hours a day, 7 days a week for those first 3 years. And now it's, once a week on a Sunday for like 6 or 7 hours. And but it was like, that was definitely my introduction to the spiritual side of things. And not because he, gave discourse or anything, but because he made you train in such a way that you discovered that silent, quiet place within yourself. And that was just awesome. And it was a big change for me, like I'm undiagnosed ADHD. And, so all throughout school, I'd be like, yep, anytime I can, I'll just nick out of the classroom and off over the back fence from the school into the national park. Just get out for the rest of the day. But like this, it was one of the first things that helped to order my mind and quiet it a bit, just so I could, have a bit of time to myself, other than being filled with all these thoughts that just made me tired and made me frustrated.
It's a great point. It's not often that you think about that, spending mental energy like that is very draining, right?
Absolutely.
So what did you, where did you go to, like, next? What was your trajectory from learning with that guy?
So from learning with him, I then, so I learned Vedic meditation, and
that's more recent though. I want to get into the
right into the nitty gritty. Yeah, sure. So what happened is that with him, I started to go to China with my Kung Fu teacher, and I would train with his teachers over there, who are like,
Was he Chinese?
old. No, he is of West Indian descent,
Mm-hmm.
but he's from London.
Right.
So yeah. So yeah, like very, very interesting cultural background. But he had been like, going to China for 30 plus years. And I went with him and met his teachers over there and started to train with them. And I remember one day, like they would take us to, different Buddhist temples and Taoist temples and that sort of thing, because they knew we loved that stuff. And
yeah,
I remember they taught me a particular Tai Chi form, which comes from the Chen style, which is basically like the oldest form of Tai Chi and Kung Fu. And I remember like them just like, and the way you train in China is they show you a thing and you practice it until they tell you to stop.
mm-hmm.
So like this thing I'd been practicing for a bit over a month, all day, every day.
Mm-hmm.
And then there was a point where I was practicing this form, and what happened was that everything started to just kind of slow down, but speed up at the same time and get very, very clear.
Mm-hmm.
And it kind of scared me a little bit, but I just kept with it. I'm like, just do what they tell you to do. You're going to get another rap on the head. So,
yeah.
so yeah, and because they train you old school, so they have a cane.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I just remember going through this and everything started to just feel very, very different and really clear, like
Mm-hmm.
the most clarity I had ever felt.
Mm.
And I was like, I don't know what this is, but I really like it. And I started to feel a bit giddy. And
yeah.
and I was like, okay, I'm not sure what this is either. And then at the end, when I asked, I'm like, what's this feeling? And they said, basically the translation was, chi is flowing, mind is clear.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, well, this is fantastic. Like it sounds great, and it felt it's almost indescribable.
Mm-hmm.
Like to feel that energetic,
Mm-hmm.
but also feeling so calm,
Mm-hmm.
without being jittery or without being feeling like you need to let off a burst of energy or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
It was just amazing. And that from there, like my mind felt a bit different, the way my thoughts worked felt a bit different. And
So it changed you forever.
It changed me forever. Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah. Like I remember specifically, like just everything looked a little bit different.
Mm-hmm.
And like it doesn't seem like that now, but like I assume that I've normalized what it was, but I still feel really good.
Yes.
And yeah, like since then, like I was always, a fairly, happy person. But after that, I felt vibrant.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like that has carried along with me since then. And it's just been so much fun. And everything becomes ridiculous fun. It's great.
Yeah. Amazing. And so what about Chinese medicine? Was that tied into that teacher and into that experience?
Yes, absolutely. So he had, also been practicing Chinese medicine for years, and I was like, this is amazing. And it got to like I was always interested in it, but hadn't really, and that sort of thing. And then both my parents got sick. My dad had a tumor the size of a fist, which was sitting in his neck, wrapped around the artery in his facial nerves.
Wow.
And so that was causing all sorts of side effects and complications. It basically was impinging on the artery so much that he was getting high pressure bursts of blood up into his head and his brain.
Mm-hmm.
And he experienced that as someone banging a drum constantly behind his eyes.
Yeah.
And, high amounts of pain and all this sort of thing. And it basically led to him not being able to sleep for over a month. And so he felt that he was going insane. And he was getting really sick of, going in and getting blasted with radiation and feeling worse. And then, taking medication for the side effect of the radiation, and then a medication for the side effect of that medication, and so on.
Yeah.
And I remember him saying to me, like, I'm just about done. I'm ready to take care of things myself.
Mm.
And that I was like, whoa, this is huge. I'm not quite sure what to do about this. And so I confided in my teacher, my martial arts teacher, and he said, if your dad is up for it, take him to see this practitioner in Footscray, which is a western suburb of Melbourne. And so I said, well, I'll try it. We've tried everything else. And I got home that day and I said to Dad, how about, we go and try this Chinese medicine thing? And, Dad grew up in, country Victoria. And so I thought he would just reject me outright. But he said, no, that sounds great. I just threw all my medication down the toilet. Let's go try something else.
Yeah, right.
And I was like, oh, okay, good. It was perfect timing for everything to sort of work and for him to accept that. So yeah, we went there, and this old Chinese man took Dad's pulse, and from his pulse goes, oh, tumor in neck, no problem. and we're like, what? How can you say that? Like he has a tumor in his neck and you say no problem after taking his pulse? And we're looking at him and we're like, did my teacher tell you what was wrong? And he's like, no, pulse tell me. And we're just like, what? And so I was freaking out a bit, and I was like, oh no, I don't know what I've taken Dad to. I don't know what we're going to do.
Yeah.
But he took Dad into this little room, laying him down and put a few needles in his back. And then I followed him back out and was just watching him make up the weirdest assortment of herbs I've ever seen. And before that, I'd never even seen like a raw herb before. I'd never seen what goes into these packets that they use in Chinese medicine or any herbal medicine. And so he gave us a week's worth of this stuff, and we went home, and I'm just thinking in my head, I'm like, I don't know what we've done. I hope it's going to be okay. I hope Dad's going to be okay. And then, so Dad boiled up his herbs for an hour, and they smelt really weird, and he said they tasted bad and all that sort of thing. But that was the first night's sleep he had in over a month.
Wow.
And all of his symptoms had almost halved, like in their intensity. And he was like, this is working, like straight away, something that neither of us had ever tried. He was like, yeah, I'm sleeping again. This is great. And so we kept going back, and I think it was 8 weeks of treatment. So we would go there for acupuncture once a week, and then we would also pick up more herbs each time as well. And then he went and got another scan at the hospital, and the tumor had reduced from the size of a clenched fist to the size of a sultana.
What?
And yeah, it was crazy. In 8 weeks, it was.
Was that without radiation, or was he still doing radiation?
This was post. This was after the radiation.
Right.
And yeah, it was amazing to see the change in him. Like all of the pain was gone. He could taste food again. He could swallow things. The drum beat behind his ear had gone away. The throat, all of it, or everything had just become so negligible that he was feeling like a human again.
Wow.
And like I just remember going back that last time to see this guy whose name was Wilson, or his English name was Wilson, and just thinking, this guy's a wizard. Like, I want to be able to do what he does. I want to be able to help people in that same way. And then I think it was, like a couple of weeks later, I enrolled to study Chinese medicine here in Melbourne and started studying that. And it was just amazing. Like, probably one of the hardest things I've ever done, because it's such a different way of thinking that you have to adjust your mind to. You literally have to adjust your thinking to
the Eastern way of seeing the world.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Which is like, for me, just stepping into that, it was like, okay, I kind of get a few of these things because of what I've learned through doing martial arts, but it was really hard. And then again, like this thing happened in a lecture. I think I was in the end of my second year studying, and what the teacher was saying to me, all of a sudden I just felt my mind do something really weird. It felt like it flipped on its head. It just like everything went opposite. And then I was understanding what he was saying for the first time. And it was just, oh, okay, I get this. Like that actually makes perfect sense now.
Yeah.
And this is great. So after that happened, I then every time I went to China with my teacher to train martial arts, I would also train in a Chinese medicine hospital over there as well.
Wow.
So I would train martial arts for the first half of the day and then Chinese medicine for the second. And we would just do that the whole time. And it was amazing.
Yeah, right.
And yeah, like again, like it's weird how when you put enough effort and time into something that it changes you fundamentally and the way that your mind and your body work. And it's, yeah, again, it brought that feeling of euphoria and of wonder at everything. Like, oh, I can actually see the way all of this stuff works now according to, the Chinese medicine point of view, which is basically according to the point of view of nature.
Yes.
Like, the oldest Chinese text is, or the oldest Chinese medicine text is called the Huangdi Neijing, which means the yellow emperor's canon. And he was basically the first one to provide discourse on Chinese medicine itself, along with some of his teachers. And it basically says, like, if it's cold outside, if there's lots of wind, make sure you cover the pores in your body so the wind doesn't enter. You don't get sick. Make sure that you eat according to the season, because if you don't, you'll probably get sick.
Yeah.
And so on. Like it's really common sense, but and it's mostly observations of the way nature works and the way it matches up with the human body. It's just amazing. And it really takes you, like, I guess, back to a simpler time. And it's a really, really lovely thing to get simple in this modern time. That's probably what I found the most, is that everything that I've learned and am currently learning is just telling me, like, keep things simple. If you're going to get too complicated with a thing, you're probably going to get sick.
Yeah. It's interesting too that you say, like, copy what nature does, pay attention to the seasons, pay attention to what nature's doing. But for most people, we live like we are on Mars. We live in our own little houses, and then we take our little vehicle to the shop, get out and get into this weird cocoon-like shop with nothing natural. And then we go out of there back into our workplace, weird cocoon-like thing, nothing natural, and transport ourselves back into our little hub, back to our home, inside again, nothing natural, disconnected from the seasons, from the time of day, all the artificial lights, everything is, we may as well be on Mars, with the way that we disconnect from that. And it's, it seems so logical once you put your attention on it and you read these, or, like you study what you've done. And you just go, like, of course we're supposed to be in tune with nature,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's so funny because you see it so much. Like, I'm seeing it in the generations younger than us now. Stooped shoulders in like 12-year-olds, and like, weakness of the legs and things like that in young kids who should be in their prime. They should be running around and climbing up trees and falling out of trees and then getting back up and climbing up another tree. Whereas, like, sometimes I'm walking through a park and I see a kid sitting on the park bench playing on an iPad or something. And, like, fair enough, like there's a place and a time for these things, but they're neglecting their bodies to such a degree that like it doesn't bode well for the future, really.
Yeah, no, it's a little bit worrying, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
So what about the next sort of where you went from there? I don't know if we captured all of the Chinese medicine stuff. Is there anything else that you would like to share about your experience with that? It's of interest, or?
I would say that time in China at the Chinese medicine hospital was probably where I learned most of my Chinese medicine. Like here in Australia, we get, I guess, like a basic education in it. But if you want to learn, I guess, and I would say this would go with anything. You've got to go back to the source and actually spend time and effort again in studying a thing to actually make it effective. And I would say that would be the main thing from that. And besides that, yeah, like with Chinese medicine, I've been treating people for 5 or 6 years now, and it's been a fantastic modality. But what I've found as well is there's that mentality of, oh great, we can go here and get fixed, and then I don't have to do anything outside of that. And like that is probably my only misgiving about Chinese medicine, or probably about any therapy, is that people expect you to do everything for them rather than realizing things through their own effort and their own movement.
So what comes next? Is meditation come next for you?
Yeah, it does. So one of those years when I was away in China, just before I went, a good friend of mine who, we'd known each other for years, and she had always suffered from some form of depression and anxiety, and like so much so that at one point, she had to leave Melbourne for a while just because it was a bit much. And then when she came back, like we talked about before, there was this vibrancy to her, this energy and happiness. And I was just like, what happened to you? Like you changed so much. And she was like, well, and then she was telling me about how she started meditating first on the One Giant Mind app. And then from there, she started to feel, a bit better. And she was like, okay, great. This is a good thing. And then she was like, okay, this is good, but I want to take it further. I want to see what else I can learn. And she was like, okay, so what's the next step? So she started to look up meditation teachers in Melbourne and found Laura Poole.
Yes.
And then she went and learnt, and from there, like it was like the next level for her. She just opened up. She was working full time in hospitality, dealing with people that used to give her anxiety. Had a part with the partner, all this sort of stuff that before would have just scared the absolute crap out of her. And yeah, so before I knew all this, like I was just like, what is going on? And she said, listen, come over and we'll have a talk. So I went over and we listened to a podcast by Tom Knowles, and it just blew my mind. Like I remember my jaw just being open and just been like, what the hell just happened? Like, who is this guy? And then she was telling me about the Vedic meditation technique that she learned and what it had done for her, and I was just like, yes, I'm in. So I went to an intro talk, and what happened there? Yeah. So I went to the intro talk, but I had to go to China, I think the next week. So I went to China, and then when I got back from China, I signed up, went and learnt, and same thing again. It was like something had been switched or flipped in my mind. I remember that first day of learning, opening my eyes after that first meditation was like everything was in high definition. And I would say that was mostly because there was nothing between my awareness and what I was looking at. Before that, like I've always had 10,000 thoughts at once. And then, after learning to meditate, I had this one thought, and the one thought was, oh, wow, that thing that I'm looking at right now is beautiful. And like walking down the street after learning that first time, I was enamored by everything happening. The wind blew some leaves off a tree, and I was just like, that's the best. And then, like the sun came out through the clouds, and I was like, that's the best. And from there, like it was just a snowball of feeling really, really great. And then, every now and then feeling a few things come up that I wasn't quite ready for or didn't know were there. But it was always happening in such a way that you knew this thing was going to pass, and then it wasn't going to come back.
That's the main point. How
And
that when once we start to get used to the process of knowing what you're doing, you realize that is exactly right. It's not going to come back, and you're leaving these things behind, not only for yourself, but for your family and your friends, and for the next generation as well. Putting the shit down.
absolutely,
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. And it, yeah, it was just, it was, it was mind blowing to me.
Yeah.
And it felt just so clear and so good. And I just remember thinking at the end of that 4-day course, like, what's next? And so that's the question I asked my teacher.
Mm-hmm.
And so then from there, you know, I did the advanced knowledge course and the advanced techniques and that sort of thing. And I kept thinking, like, I think I have to share this with people.
Mm-hmm.
And so from there, like after a couple of years of study and those advanced techniques and knowledge courses, we went to India with, I think there were 10 of us, to go and learn how to teach this amazing thing. And we were, you know, practicing meditation and the advanced techniques along with it for 14 hours a day, and watching the seasons change, you know, next to the Alakananda River up in the Himalayas. Like we got there, it would have been the end of, I don't know if you'd call it winter there, but all the trees were bare and it was freezing. But then as things started to warm up, like we had nowhere to go. All we were doing every day was meditating and listening to lectures with our teacher and asking questions. So I watched banana leaves unfurl day to day to day and was just like, whoa, it was the best. And you know, like if you got to
down to their speed,
it was awesome.
Right.
It's the best thing I've ever done for myself.
Yeah,
it was
right.
just amazing. And yeah, like I remember also, like, you know, if you get too hot, we would just go down and jump in the river, which was glacier melt. So like, you know, if you've been in there for more than a minute or two, like your hands and your feet are numb, and you get out and then you're in this, you know, 35-degree weather and you're like, oh, okay, this is great.
Yeah.
And so like it was just wonderful. And yeah, like big realizations happening as well. You know, if you do, as you know, you do that much meditation and that much round in advanced techniques, you have a lot of things come up, things that you didn't even know were there. Like for me, like I had all this frustration and aggression coming out and I was just like, I don't think I've felt this way since I was, you know, in my early 20s when I was, you know, loved a bar fight. But like it was all these things coming up and out, and you know, sometimes you were laughing and sometimes it was tears, and other times like you were just so angry with yourself, or like embarrassed for the way that, you know, that you talked to that girl when you were 17 and stuff like that. Like all these things coming up and out, I think, is the main thing.
Yeah.
Because as it leaves, like there's this space, and as you sit in that space and feel it, you can really see and hear and understand things for the first time, or clearly for the first time.
Yeah, you kind of can reconnect back to your own. Like I kind of feel like that those experiences, there's some wisdom that we have that it blocks, you know, of our own knowingness, and with that crap in the way, then once it's gone, you're like, oh, I actually have this wisdom, or I have this ability to access myself, you know, without the obstruction.
Yes. Absolutely. Like it's such an interesting thing to feel that that you used to be ignorant to your own wants and needs. Like all we do at, you know, at is we start to feel a thing that we need or that we want, and then we just shove it down and we bury it. And we do what, you know, someone else wants, or what we think we want for ourselves, which is completely different.
Yeah.
It's such a funny little paradox. Like, okay, I think I want this thing, and then, you know, you do some things that clear those thoughts out of the way, and you go, oh, I didn't actually want that. That was actually the part of me that wanted to really good in front of someone else, or in front of people in general. And having that cleared out of the way and being able to make touch with that inner part of yourself it's a gift.
Mm-hmm.
It's a huge gift that you give yourself through, I guess, any practice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's so important, and in the world today, that with all of the anxiety and depression and people not knowing who they are,
Yes.
people not having that direct experience, it's so you want to run around and shake people really and be like, do this thing, be what you are,
Absolutely.
Like, a lot of people in the world want to control people and want to manipulate them to get them to do what they want to do. It's like, I want you to do what you want to do, and to have the confidence and the power and ability to go forth and do whatever you feel like you need to be doing. And the only way that I can see, I'm sure you'd agree, is that you have to have the experience of what you are first in order to be able to rely on that, to act from that place. Otherwise, it's just either an idea or a complete unknown, in which case you're just floundering about, without any direction or without any knowing of what you are. And it's a real shame, to see people suffering when everybody has access to this place. It just takes the time and the dedication to do it. Give it to yourself, really.
Absolutely.
Even though I'd say I want to shake people and say you need to try this, half the people that try it know how good it is and still don't do it. That's the thing that breaks my brain. I'm like, you've learned to do this thing and you don't do it, but it's the best thing that you could be doing right now. And it's just like,
yes.
The ignorance is so strong and so powerful at manipulating our minds and our ability to think and reason, and the best thing for us we can put to the side and do the worst things for us a lot of the time. So
yeah,
I'm sure you see that as a teacher too, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. And I always put that down to being part of the research as well. Like I always encourage all my students, like, okay, like, you know how to do this thing now, and it feels good doing it. Yes. And they just say, yes. Okay. So when it happens, and it will happen, that you don't do it.
Yes.
Remember how you're feeling now compared to how you feel then. And 100% of the time they always come back and they say, I didn't do that thing, and I did the research like you said, and I felt shit.
Yeah.
It felt so weird.
Yeah.
It felt so weird. And then as soon as I felt weird and crap, I just sat down and closed my eyes and did the thing, and then I felt good again.
Yeah.
And it's so funny, because when we talk through that, it's like, okay, but like, did you actually feel crap? No, I didn't feel crap. It's just, I wasn't feeling that 100% best that I could be. And that's what I wanted to feel again.
Yeah.
And so, whether they hadn't been practicing for a week or 2 weeks or whatever, they always, or most of the time, come back to it. Especially, if they have a chance to talk about their experience.
Exactly.
I find it's always really important for them to have that space to talk about what is actually going on inside, rather than just to mentally mull it over.
Yeah. And so I like your approach better. It's way better than my shaky shake approach. So probably
maybe that's needed.
No, I think your approach is probably more compassionate and effective. So what about obviously when you go away, for people that haven't done a rounding retreat where you take your normal self and you experience yourself at the most de-excited place you can get, your consciousness gets very expansive, the body gets very rested, you're hardly breathing, the heart rate's super slow, your metabolism drops right down, you're just allowing the consciousness to do its thing and really slow down. And then, so if people don't know what that is, it feels amazing and it's blissful, but then you've got to bring all of this expansiveness back into a body and into action and into the world and into being relevant again. how fun was that coming back? I want to talk just a little bit about that. You know, obviously,
it was, yeah.
Mm.
I remember the first thing, I think the day after I got back, the first thing I did was go for. I was near Chapel Street,
Mm-hmm.
and I was looking around, and I was like, oh, there are a lot of angry white people here. and I was like, oh, maybe I should go back to India. But then I was like, oh, okay, angry white people that I actually need to teach,
Mm-hmm.
because they need to realize they actually have so much here. Like the amount of wealth and access to just any single thing that we could ever want, you know, like materially speaking, is here. Like we have it all. And it doesn't matter if you have, you know, if you rent a tiny shoebox apartment, or if you own like, you know, 5 different houses around Melbourne or Sydney or something. That's
Mm-hmm.
not the point. Like you can actually be so happy and so fulfilled and so excited about any of that.
Mm-hmm.
Like you can come back from India after doing, you know, a 3.5 month retreat with a huge amount of debt, and be a happy person.
Yeah.
You can enjoy it. And that was probably like the biggest thing that I felt when I got back. That there wasn't so much like shakiness or anything like that to start with. It
Mm-hmm.
was more, okay, I've got a job to do here, and I know I have the ability to help a lot of people.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful.
But yeah, like, and then, you know, later on as the months go by, you start to feel, you know, the effects of, you know, 3 months of, you know, 14 rounds a day start to come up.
Mm-hmm.
And every now and then, yeah, like you do feel things come up. Like you feel that past frustration, or that extreme tiredness from when you know, you used to run a restaurant
Mm-hmm.
and be up all night counting tills and stuff until like 5 a.m, and then you go out for drinks after that and that sort of thing. Like,
Yeah.
you, all of it comes out. It doesn't matter what it is,
Mm-hmm.
but whatever you've done to yourself is fun and glorious ways, whether it comes out physically into the toilet, or whether it comes out like as emotions or body pain. Yeah, that was one of the things. When I got back, I barely ever get sick, but
Mm-hmm.
when I got back, it felt like a flu,
Mm-hmm.
but it was probably I'd like a little bit of a stuffy nose, but I had the worst headache I've ever had. I lay on the floor for a week.
Yeah.
And you know, my partner would, like, she would get home. I would be like, can you just stand on my head for a while? Because I think it might make it feel better.
Yeah,
And
right.
so, you know, she would be putting a lot of pressure on my head, and, you know, that would help. But that
Mm-hmm.
passed after a week, and then I just felt excellent.
Mm-hmm.
It was like just something big in my body had passed. And,
Yeah.
you know, since then I still get bouts of tiredness, but
Mm-hmm.
I know that when they come, I know how to deal with them now. I
Mm-hmm.
rest
Yeah.
rather than push through and, you know, drink 7 coffees and keep doing things. Like, no,
Yeah.
I close the computer and I put down my phone,
Mm-hmm.
and I lie down and I go to sleep if I need to.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes sense as well.
That comes, yes, partly from what we learned like in India, but also partly from what I learned in China and through my Chinese medicine education.
Mm-hmm.
It's all really there. Like, listen to your body and listen to what it's telling you. If you're tired, give it a rest. If there's something going on with your gut, then look at what you're eating. Is the food really rich, or, you know, are you ordering takeaway every night?
Mm-hmm.
Make something simple.
Mm-hmm.
It's really, really simple. And, you know, of course there are like other circumstances that, you know, some people are in, but there are still ways to deal with all this stuff in a simplified manner. And I think that would be the biggest thing that I've taken from, you know, the last 20 years of what I've been doing, is that things need to be simple. And as soon as we let them become too complicated, and this is relationships and family and or exercise or
Diet.
learning to do anything, everything, education, all of it. If it becomes too complicated, it just doesn't work so well.
Mm-hmm.
And there are ways to simplify absolutely everything.
Mm. I had a question about breath work. I noticed you do breath work. You teach that as well.
Yes, I do.
So is there a specific lineage or a type of breath work that you teach, or where do you learn this stuff?
Yeah, so the breath work that I teach was taught to me through throughout the last 10 years of training with my teacher. So I use it, like some forms of it, for getting ready to move the body in really fast, explosive ways.
Mm-hmm.
Some of it is qigong based, and qigong it's another Chinese art, but it's an internal art where you learn to use the breath to control what your body can do and what the mind can do. So it's definitely like bits and pieces from the Chinese traditions, but also like the pranayama, the Vedic breath work as well, from the yogic traditions.
Mm-hmm.
And I've placed a few different things together, and again, like I keep it really simple, especially to start with. Like I do an Instagram live every weekday morning at 7 a.m. and that, I do a 5-minute breath instruction.
Every weekday morning?
Every single weekday morning.
Right. Cool.
Yeah. So all I do is I show a breath, I talk a little bit about it, and I say, do it for this long, see how you feel.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to do it for longer, do that. If you have any questions, let me know and I'll answer them. Yeah. And it's really that easy. Mm-hmm. And the longer classes like that I run on Monday nights are more me guiding people, beginners, through a breathwork sequence that resets the nervous system. Mm-hmm. In such a way that they feel both physiological and mental release. And like some people will feel like there is cold water running all over their body, but they're not. They're just lying there under a blanket in their own lounge room, because at the moment we're doing this over Zoom, and I find it as a really great bridge for people that aren't quite yet ready to try meditation, but that still like to do physical things, but also don't want to go really deep into like advanced martial arts sets and that sort of thing. Yeah. So it's just a really good way of getting a little bit active in order to reset the nervous system, and then to teach different ways to use it. So some of these forms of breath work will help just everything relax and bring you into gentle rest, so you can de-excite the nervous system before going to bed and help yourself sleep. Then there are types that you can practice to stimulate the digestion, feeling that there's anything stuck or not moving or uncomfortability there. And then there are other types of breath work which you use before you punch brick walls or break boards and that sort of thing. But that sort of stuff is a bit more advanced and isn't really needed for what I'm trying to help people with.
Mm-hmm. And so you do that every Monday night?
Yes, every Monday night at 6 p.m. I teach that's the paid class, and it goes for an hour. And then 7 a.m. every weekday morning for just a free breath instruction on Instagram Live.
And so on the Monday night one, would you be laying down to do the breath work, or are you sitting up, or a bit of both?
It depends what you're comfortable with. Most people, if it's their first time, I say lie down, just because if any dizziness happens, they're already lying down. It means they can just relax with the breath, come back to their normal state of being, and then begin again. There's no problem there. Right.
So if you're a sicko like me and you like the dizziness, then you sit up.
Yeah, or you stand.
Or you stand.
That's where it gets fun.
Right. Gotcha.
Yes.
Nice. I'll have to come and do one. I look forward to it.
I'd love that. That'd be fun.
Looking for a Monday night soon.
Perfect.
Alex, it's been a pleasure to chat. Before we wrap it up, do you have any favorite spiritual wisdom or quote for me?
Oof. There's so many.
What's a powerful one maybe that stuck with you through challenging times, or one that really stood out to you over the years, and maybe you hold on to and look back on?
Well, there's one by Guru Dev, and I'll paraphrase it. It is, he's saying is that you should always expect the best for yourself.
Aha, it is.
Oh, you've got it right there.
Got it right here. Yeah. You deserve the best. Never feel unworthy or unjustified in having the best. I tell you, this is your heritage. You have to accept it. You expect it. You have to claim it. To do so is not deserving too much.
Absolutely. And
that's synchronicity for you.
Yeah, and it's perfect. The reason I like it so much is because, like, him saying you have to accept it, you have to expect it, and it's not too much to think that, is him saying, like, listen, if you see a thing that you want or that you feel that you're desiring, go for that thing. Don't just sit there and watch it from afar towards it. Provide the effort that will then seat you in such a place that this thing is yours and fully yours. I think it's so important that if you been drawn towards something, and it doesn't matter what it is, it doesn't matter if you want to be a shoe salesman or an architect or to sit in a cave doing yoga and meditating for the next 30 years. It doesn't matter which of these things it is. You need to go for it with everything you have, because that's what keeps things exciting. It keeps them magical and it keeps them mysterious. And I think you need to chase that.
Beautiful. Thank you very much. Do you have a place we can find you to learn meditation or martial arts or breathing or whatever?
Absolutely. My website, which is www.alexpowerlett.com, is probably the best place to find me, and Instagram as well is just @AlexPowerlett. It's that simple.
Beautiful, mate. Thank you very much for joining me tonight. Jai Gurudev.
Jai Gurudev, my friend. Thanks so much, Daniel.
No worries. Thanks a lot. See ya.